All right, guys, this is 4.9 toggle mixed up or write code practice. We're going to do the write code part. Okay. So if we're here, starting off, it says finish the code to print out all the values from 20 to 30, 20, 21, 22, all the way through. Now, if I know I'm starting at 20 and moving through 30, I want to print out all those values. So let's write a, do you want to write a for loop or a while loop? You want a for loop? You want a while loop? Okay. Say that out loud again. Say it out loud again. While x is less than or equal to 30 and you want to initialize a variable. Okay, so we'll say int x is assigned 20. And we'll say while x is less than or equal to 30. What do we want to do? Put that inside curly braces. Well, we want to write system.out.println. Make sure I have my semicolon. What do we want to print out? We want to print out x. And then what do we have to do to x each time? We got to add 1 to it, right? There's different ways you could write it. You could say x is less than 31, right? We'll say less than or equal to. We'll print it out each time. And let's run this. Okay, 20, 21, 22, 23, all the way to 30. Okay, so we assigned x a value of 20, and then we wrote a loop that loops through until we hit 30. It includes 30 and then stops because 31 is not less than or equal to 30. All right, next one. Finish the code to print a countdown from 15 to 0. Okay. Do we want to write a for loop or a while loop? Okay. We can use either, right? We can use a for loop, we can use a while loop. Since we used a while in the first one, let's just use a while again. So I'll say int I is assigned the value 15. And I'll say while I is less than or equal to 0. Say system.out.println, my semicolon at the end there, and we'll just print out I. Then I have to increment I at the end, or sorry, subtract 1 from I at the end, decrement I each time. So it should print out 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, all the way down to 0. Let's go ahead and run it. Oh, greater than or equal to. Greater than or equal to. Messed up as soon as I looked at it. Yep. Greater than or equal to 0. It never ran at all, right? There we go. So just my brazen quick approach. I said less than or equal to. It should have been greater than or equal to 0. All right. And that prints out there. So now if I wanted to write that in a for loop, right? Say I did. You could say for first you initialize what I is, right? So you can say I is 15, semicolon, as long as I is greater than or equal to 0. And each time we take 1 away from I. So I could say, I'll copy this. This is a for loop, right? And it'll give you the same exact output as the while loop there. For int I, whoops. For int I have to make sure to write that way. Int I is assigned 15 as long as I is greater than or equal to 0. Run through it. Each time afterwards, subtract 1. Okay, there's my for loop. All right, let's write a for loop on this one. Okay, so print up from 0 to 50. So we'll say for, make sure to write int, and I'll say I is assigned 0. We're going to go up as long as I is less than or equal to 50. Make sure to use the right relational operator there. And then each time we're going to add 5. All right. Each time we'll add 5. Open and close my curly braces. And system.out.println. I'm going to print out I each time. Okay, my for loop starts at I. I is assigned 0 as long as whatever I is less than or equal to 50. It runs through. I add 5 each time. Let's run it. And I get my answer. Okay. Next one, finish the code to print out the values from 0 to 100 by 20s. I'm going to copy and paste my code from before. Copy and paste. Okay. So we start at 0. I want it to go to 100. And each time I'm adding what? 20. Okay. Int I is assigned 0. As long as I is less than or equal to 100, I'm going to keep going up. Add 20 to it each time. Let's run it. Awesome. 0, 20, 40, 60, 80, 100. Finish the code, print out values from 100 to 0 by 10s. I'm going to just literally click paste again. What value am I starting at? 100. Okay. As long as it is greater than or equal to what? 0. And I'm subtracting by what? 10. Right, starting at 100. As long as it's greater than or equal to 0, we're going to keep going down by 10. Love it. Finish the code to print 3 rows. All right, now we got some nested for loops. We got inner loops and outer loops. Finish the code to print 3 rows with 6 stars in each row. Okay, so I'll say for int I is assigned 0. We're going to go as long as I is less than 3. And each time we will add 1 to it. Now for my inner loop, I'll say for, we want to do 6 times, right? So int I is assigned, oh, sorry, we'll do j is assigned 0. Be any variable. I'm just using j. As long as j is less than 6, we'll add 1 to it each time. Okay, we'll say system.out.print. And what am I printing out? I'm printing out an asterisk. Okay. And then after I have printed out 6, I'm moving to the next row. So I'll say system.out. Make sure to be aware of the placement of this. System.out.println. Okay. So my outer loop, I is assigned 0. It should go through 3 times. I always like that method rather than going 1 and then less than or equal to 3. I just like knowing whenever I start I at 0, and then I always put in the middle whatever number that's supposed to stop at. So it's supposed to stop at 3, supposed to stop at 6 there. That's just how I write it frequently. Obviously, you can count down, you can count up, however you want to do it. Different ways will work. Let's run it. Compiling and running your code now. Still waiting. For like half this class, we wait for our code to run. Okay, next one. Just gonna move on there. Not sure what's taking so darn long. Anyone else's code run? It's been taking a while. All right. I'm just gonna move on. Okay. It says finish the code to print 1, followed by a new line, and then 22 followed by a new line, and then 333 followed by a new line. Make sure to use loops. Okay, so there's gonna be 2 loops, right? I have a for loop, and I have an inner for loop as well. Let's start with my first for loop. See if this code ever ran. Nope, didn't run. Server error gateway timeout. Let me refresh the page. Let's see where I was. That one worked, that one worked, that one worked. Was this the one? I think this was the problem I was working on. I want to get this sorted out because it looks like my code from below didn't end up saving. I'm not sure why that's taking so long there. Anyway, it's saying time limit. That should be right. All right. Next one, I started writing it, disappeared. Start my for loop. I'll just start it here. Int I, we want I to start at 1, right? Well, we want it to go through 3 times, so probably want to go through 3 times. So we'll just say int I is assigned, we'll say 0, right? Because we want to loop through 3 times. Or do I want to actually have? I'll just say 1. Okay, int I is assigned 1, and we're gonna go until I, as long as I is less than or equal to 3, and we'll add 1 each time to it. Okay, and then inside of that loop, make sure you put your curly braces. We will say for, this is weird that hasn't been running. Anyway, for, this is going to be int I, or int j. We want this to go through. We'll start it at, we want to start this at 0. And then as long as j is less than 3. Sorry, I'm reading through this, trying to figure out how I want to do this. Might want to count down. We're going to print out I, but then the number of times we want to go through it. So we want to start with 1 time through. So we'll say system.out.println. We're going to print out I just messed this up right here, j++. So we want this to print out whatever that first number was. We want to print it out 1 time. We want to print the second time out. We want to do it twice. Okay, so we want to print out 2, 2, and the last time we want to print out 3, 3, 3. So we want that to loop through 1 time with the first variable, 2 times with the second variable, followed by a new line. So I'll add system.out.println. This would be print. And they have written this first part wrong here. Finish the code to write, followed by a new line, then followed by 22, followed by a new line, then 333, followed by a new line. So let's walk through this. I have my variable first starting at 1. It would print that, but I want to loop it through after that. I forget how we did this in our last example. I forget how we wrote this code. Would anyone like to chime in and tell me?
Yeah, I did x equals 1,
Mm-hmm.
like 4, and x equals 1, semicolon x less than or equal to 3, semicolon x plus plus.
For your outer loop?
Yeah.
Okay, so just like that, right? Okay. And then what about this inner loop?
For y equals 0, y less than x, y plus plus.
So as long as the second variable is less than the first variable, what you print out? Do you print out x each time?
Yes.
Let me see if this ends up even running. Piling and running your code now. Did anyone get anything different? Ends up running. So we started at 0. That was just my mistake. The one error I had made here was as long as j is less than I. Okay. Well, now that runs, thank you, Corbin. Now that runs, let me go up here and rerun this one from above, just making sure I get credit for it. So it's compiling and running your code now. I don't know why that one problem doesn't want to run for me. Okay, walking through this problem, just that way we're all on the same page. I have my main method. I have my outer for loop. My I is assigned 1. And then as long as it's less than or equal to 3, we have I plus plus. So I also have an inner variable called j. J is assigned 0. And as long as j, in this case, 0 is less than 1, so it would print and then move on. So we're able to control 2 different variables here. I moves up to 2, right? And then so this inner loop runs, and it would run 2 times. And then the last time it would run 3 times. The one above never ended up running. Okay, no worries. Thank you again, Corbin. Okay, finish the code to print 1111 2222. So what we'll do is we'll copy our code from above. So we'll say, we'll grab these 2 for loops right here. Just as a similar problem, we'll paste it. Okay, we want to start at 1, but as long as I is less than or equal to 5, right? And we're going to assign j is assigned 0. Okay, each time we're moving up by 1. So what I changed right here was I is less than or equal to 5. This should run, question mark? Let's take a look. That gave me, oh, so the opposite order. So we're starting with all the ones. Oh, wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it prints 5 times. It prints a number 5 times. I don't know why I was thinking that it was going to go and increment like the last one. I wasn't paying attention. So we want the letter to go through 5 times each time. So as long as j is, do we want to say less than 5? Let's try that. Compiling and running my code. There we go. So the change I made, instead of j is less than I, that was just giving me the same exact thing as the last example. I wasn't recognizing that it wanted 5 1s, 5 2s, 5 3s, 5 4s, 5 5s. Right? That's what happens when I don't read directions. Okay, that's my for loop. Moving on. Okay, I'm going to read directions this time. So I have 5 1s, 4 2s, 3 3s, 2 4s, 1 5. All right, I'm going to paste the for loop we had before, right? So we're starting with 1, and we're going to go all the way as long as I is less than or equal to 5. Okay, we're going to start j at 5 as long as j is greater than I, j minus minus. That sound right? Let's test it. Don't be afraid to run your code and get mistakes. I got a mistake. Oh, so I need to do it more. So it's saying that I need, so expected, I only printed out 4 ones, never actually got to 5. So if I start this at 0, would that work? But then it would start printing out zeros. We don't want to print out zeros.
You can use like j bigger and equal to I.
Greater than or equal to I. There we go. Let's try that. Wells, you're a genius. Look at that. So smart. So as long as j is greater than or equal to I, if we went down here, it printed out originally, we just had that, right? We started off with that. As long as j is greater than I, and we said it didn't include that last one, so greater than or equal to I. Good call, good call. Completed, well done. Thanks for your help, guys. I like this to be interactive. Sometimes my brain shuts off. All right, 410. Coding practice with loops. Okay, it says rewrite the following code so it uses a for loop instead of a while loop. Right? So I'm going to go ahead and just comment all this out so you can just see it. So it's saying that this for loop, once a for loop, that x into x is assigned 5, semicolon, as long as x is greater than 0, semicolon. Each time we're going to subtract 1 from x. Open and close my curly braces here. Let's zoom in. Okay. We're just going to say, I'll copy this. System.out.println, print x out. Is that good? Yeah. Let's run it. Pass. Sweet. Next one. Rewrite the code using a while loop. Look at that. They put their for loop all in one line. Pretty cool, right? Not really. You can do that. All right, so my while loop. So I'm going to say int x is assigned 1 while x is less than or equal to 10, curly braces, system.out.println x. I just copy and pasted that in there. And each time we're going to add 1 to x. Okay, don't forget your semicolons. Just double checking. Looks good. Let's see if I made any mistakes. Takes forever to run. Taking forever to run our code here. Cool. Got it. Mine went through. It says rewrite the following code so that uses a for loop instead of a while loop. So I'm going to comment out all that. That was my while loop. Let's write a for loop instead. So I'll say for int x is assigned 5 as long as x is less than or equal to 15. And each time we'll add 1 to it. Okay, my curly braces. I'm just going to say system.out.println x, because that's my variable I'm working with. So it should print out 5 all the way up through 15. Let me run it, see if I made any errors. Looks good. Cool. Cool, got it. Next one, write a while loop instead of a for loop. So I'll comment that out. So writing my while loop, I'll zoom in a little bit so we can see it. We'll say int x is assigned the value 10 while x is less than or equal to 100. What am I going to do? I'm going to copy this. That's what I'm going to do. Copy system.out.println. Okay, and then what do I have to do to x? If I'm here, I print out x, and then I do what to it? I add 10. Okay, semicolon. All right, I'm just gonna, like, when I run it, I'm just going to move on because I'm tired of waiting. We'll check back at the end and see if the code we wrote was good. How about that? All right, the following code should print the values from 1 to 10, but has errors. Fix the errors. Okay, so it should be inclusive. So we'll say less than or equal to 10, right? As long as x is less than or equal to 10. The last code ran, by the way, so didn't just run, it was right. Passed. What's that? There's no incrementation. You're correct. What should I do? X plus plus semicolon. So what happens to that loop? What does it do? Without incrementation, what does it do? So I'm going. Okay, it never ends up ending. So in this case, it had to be inclusive, including less than or equal to 10, and then also adding 1 each time, incrementing it. All right, I'm going to move on. We'll come back to that. It should print 10 to 5. Fix the errors. So if it starts at 10, as long as it is greater than or equal to 5, we subtract 1 from it. System.out.println. Then we subtract 1. So let's see. So if 10 is 10 greater than or equal to 5, yes. So it prints it out and it subtracts 1 from it. Do we need to subtract 1 extra from it? No, we don't. We already have it. What's that? Yeah, get it out of there. We don't need that. Our last one ran and passed, by the way. Okay, so does this look good? Anything I'm forgetting here? Let's see. We'll keep moving. We'll come back to that. The following code should print the values from 10 to 1, but it has errors. Fix the code so it works. So it should print 10 to 1. As long as x is greater than or equal to, well, we don't want it to print out 0. So let's change 0 to 1, right? Correct. Or else it would just print out 9 first. We don't want that. So we will take 1 away from x after we print that value out, right? So now it should print out 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The one above passed. Is that look good? Let's try it. All right, the next one. Finish the code below to print a countdown from 100 to 0 by tens using a for or while loop. Okay. Do that. So I'll say for int I is assigned 100 as long as I is greater than or equal to 0. And each time we're going to subtract 10 from I. What am I going to print out each time? System.out.println. I'm going to print out I. Okay, I chose a for loop here. 100 is greater than or equal to 0. I'll then subtract till I get down. 0 will run as well, so it's inclusive of 0. And then I'll run it. The code from above passed. We're on a roll. This one is running. We'll move on to the next one in the meantime to save time. Okay, this example right here, it says, finish the code to print the value of x and is even if x is even and blank is odd. If it is odd for all values from 10 to 1. Print the value of x and, so to concatenate that with that, if x is even and it's odd. Okay, so we'll write a for loop before int I, or I'll say int x, assign the value of 10. As long as x is greater than or equal to 1, and each time we're going to subtract 1 from it. And we're going to have to write an if, right? So if x mod 2, this inside parentheses, if x mod 2 is 0, we're going to print out we'll say x plus is even. Okay. And anything else anything else, I'll just copy this. And say X is odd. Code above passed, by the way. All right, let me just read through this, make sure I'm not doing anything dumb here. Starting at 10, as long as 10 is greater than or equal to 1, that's true. We're going to subtract 1 each time. Is 10 divided by 2, is there a remainder 0? If yes, then print out 10 is even. If not, then print out it's odd. All right, we'll run it. That's my code for that one. Oh, there are errors. Oh, I wrote I minus minus. See, something dumb. There we go. Okay. I'd written I minus minus. That's just dumb syntax mistake. User error. All right, next one. Let's finish the code below to print the values for 10 times x, where x changes from 0 to 10 using a loop. Okay, so for int x is assigned 0 as long as x is less than or equal to 10. Each time we'll add 1 to x, not I. Almost wrote I. Okay, what are we going to print? System dot out dot print line. Well, says the values of 10 times x. So we'll say 10 times x. Could write it like that, I guess. Code above passed. I think we already knew that, but there you go. 10 times 0 is 0. 10 times 1 is 10. All right, next one. Finish the code so that prints a string message minus the last character each time. Oh, okay. This one's going to be a little bit more difficult. We're going to have to call back our substring method. And yeah. So finish the following code so it prints a string message minus the last character each time through the loop until there are no more characters. Okay. So we'll say if I want to take, let me just talk this out to myself before I do it. I'm going to take off the last index, which would be length minus 1. Okay. Then I would take off whatever length minus 2 is, and then length minus 3, and then length minus 4, right? So if I'm starting off, I want to print out, so we'll say for, write my for loop here, we'll say I is assigned 1. We'll say as long as I is less than message dot length. As long as I is less than that, we're going to add 1 to it each time. Okay, and then we will create so each time I'm going to print something out. I'll say system.out.println. What am I going to print out? I'm going to print out, I'll call this, I guess on the outside, I'll say string partial message. I'll just call it P. And maybe we'll say P is assigned message dot substring. If I'm going to print out, we'll say from whatever 0 is through, I wonder if it wants me to print the last minus the last character. Okay, so we'll say the last character in that, not us, the last character in that would be whatever message dot length minus I. Right? And then we'll print out P. So that first time, let me just walk through this. Let's see if I'm, so the substring would print out 0 through message.length is 4. So it would print out 0 through 0, 1, 2, 3. So I probably want, it would stop there. It would stop at 3 though. So that should work. So the next time it would subtract 2. And then let's run it and just see what we get. I need a semicolon. That would probably help first. I also need to type, I'm making dumb mistakes. I need to type int I. I didn't type int before I.
Make it I greater than or equal to message length because they're trying to be inclusive. Yeah.
So I printed in he, h, right? So say it again, Greg.
Well, would you want to make I 0 to start with and then have to make it greater than equal to? Because what's happening is you want to start with help, so it has to be.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize it wanted me to actually start with help. I thought it wanted me to start with cutting. So it prints a string message minus the last character each time. Got it. So it wants me to print it out right the first time. So starting at 0, that would fix it.
And then the greater than or less than equal to message.
Do I need that as well? We'll see. Yeah, I don't need the less than or equal to. But yeah, so I didn't realize that we were starting just with help. I thought it was just we're cutting off one letter each time. But Greg, correct. We started by starting at 0. That gave us the whole string. So I'm actually surprised I was able to get this almost the first time minus this. Okay, so here's what I did. I wrote the message was help. I also have this partial. P was just like a partial string. Probably should have thought of a better variable name, but I didn't. Int I is assigned 0, right? That will give us the full help message because 0 all the way through the length. Remember, substring, the first argument that's passed in is what index we're starting at. So we're starting at index 0 here. Okay. And then it's what we're stopping at. The second argument is what we're stopping at. So 0, 1, 2, 3. Length is 4, and 4 minus 0 is 4 still. So it would stop before it got there. Okay. Now, let's see what happens if we type in a different message, right? So now they wrote this code, we could say, instead of help, I could say APCSA. If I run it, okay, it does the same thing. Obviously, it's not what it's expecting, so it's giving me a red fail, but it does what we want it to do. So I'll say help. Okay. The next one, it says finish the code to loop printing the message each time through the loop. Finish the code to loop printing. Finish the code to loop printing the message each time through the loop. That just sounds weird. Am I reading this wrong? Finish the code to loop printing the message each time through the loop. And remove an X from the message until all the X's are gone. See if our last one ran. Okay, it did. Okay, so I'm trying to think of the algorithm what we used before when we did a similar example. It was like if the index is X, then, or sorry, if whatever, as we loop through each character in the string, if whatever that character is X, don't add it to the final message. So we'll write system.out message. Okay, so I'll create a string. I'm gonna take this out. Okay, I'll say string final message. It'll be blank to start. And I'll say for int I is assigned 0. Int I is assigned 0. Goodness, can't type. As long as I is less than whatever the message is dot length. We're going to loop through everything in there. Each time add 1 to it. All right. So we want to loop through each character. So we'll say if message index of the index of method that we use, that takes, I'm trying to remember how that method ended up working. That would take index of whatever letter that is. So if I know how to do it with indexing. So if I'm starting at index 0 of message. Okay, so if I say we haven't talked about that yet though. I have to do it their way. Trying to think different methods that we've learned. So we've learned already message dot. But when we used index of, wasn't that like you pass a specific letter? You couldn't pass it a number, right?
Message that index of passes passes it as a number. Like it goes through the string and finds the first instance of whatever you put in it.
Right. So I would have to, if I were to use index of, I would first have to go through and already have a specific letter that I'm pulling instead of the index of. I'm trying to just like I'll give an example, right? If I have index of that specific letter, we didn't learn that, did we? So I'm trying to go through the methods that we've learned. Index of that would be message. Did we learn? I don't think we did learn that yet. Let me see what we actually went through and learned in previously. We went through loops and strings. So we learned index of, but that was it. And the example was if it was, let me see how we used this before. As index of A, continue moving through. We used a while loop there. But I can't pass in a number there. So this is the loop that we used before. We use message.index of x. So maybe that's what we should be doing. Okay. We'll copy this. We'll copy this code and we'll move it over. We'll say coding practice with loops, this one. Okay, moving down, we were on which example? This one? So we'll say while message.index of x is greater than or equal to 0. Find the next index for x. The way we did that was message.index of x. We don't need to actually print that out. We had two strings, the first part of the message starting at the substring 0 to the index of that. Then the last part of the message was to the index plus 1. And then we'll have to take this out and we'll say x to the last part. Don't need any of this. And we just need like that. So let me look through this. So using a while loop, first we're going to loop through while x, okay, while the index of wherever x is greater than 0. So if it finds an x, we're going to look through it, find the x, whatever index that is, and then we'll say found a 1, or wait, we're not going to say that. We're going to take whatever the message is, and we're going to add a substring from 0 to the index. Let's run this, and let's see what we get. What errors do I have? Okay, so we'll say int index. run it and very slowly. Still compiling and running. We'll wait. All right, time limit exceeded. How much time we have? 20 minutes to make sure we're getting close.
Pretty sure that error happens when you put a semicolon where a semicolon should be. The last time I got that error is when I put a semicolon where it shouldn't be.
What error? That timed out?
Yeah, the time limit reached.
I don't see any semicolons where semicolons shouldn't be. Usually that would be the error that it gave you. All right, we're gonna keep trucking along here. Okay, write a loop below to print the number of X's in the string message. Use the index of and substring methods. Okay. I'm gonna keep getting a timeout on this. So let's look at this example below. It says write a loop below to print out the number of X's in the string message. So really my answer should be 1, 2, 3, and 4. So the way that I did that is I looked at the first index, which is 0, and went through each time until I got to the end of there. If that letter was X, then count it. Add 1 to the variable. We'll make some notes here. We'll say, well, I guess I'll jump into it. So we'll create our loop for, we'll assign for I is 0, as long as I is less than whatever message dot length is. Each time we'll add 1 to it. All right, so we'll say look above. First, we used this, right, in order to find the index, whatever the index is of that specific letter. I don't know if I want to do it that way. I know how to do it in Python. I'm trying to figure out how we would do it in ways that we already learned here in this class. So we would say we want to use the very first index. So index 0 would be count the number of X's. So I would say we'll copy the same line here. And we'll say int index is assigned whatever the message, whatever the index is of X. I guess I could go through each time. I know each time I want to add one to the index, my brain is like fried right now trying to go through all this code. Let me do this. We'll use this as a stopping point for today because we went through a lot already. If you want to continue to work through this, that's fine. But I feel like my brain's just not working right now. 1, 2, 3, 4 more problems left in this one. We'll start back here where we started last class. How far did we want to get through? We wanted to get through by the end of this week. 414. Yeah. We'll be good. All right, we'll stop here. I'm going to play around with this a bit, and then we will move forward. All right, so you can go ahead and stop here. And we'll pick back up on here next class.